I know I already gave a manga disclaimer, but here's another one. If you currently don't read Jujutsu Kaisen, this video will be talking about information up to the latest chapter of chapter 235. But with that being said, let's get right into it. Within the last few months, we have been witnessing the battle of the strongest between Satoru Gojo and Sukuna. This fight, which has been foreshadowed since the start of the series, has finally been put on the stage and definitely hasn't disappointed for the most part. But I think it's clear to everyone, despite how close these two individuals are in terms of power and abilities, Gojo has always had or ends up having the upper hand within the battle. With the latest chapter, chapter 235, we have probably the most interesting display of tactics between both Gojo and Sukuna. Gojo's means to create purple and Sukuna's realization and attempt to counter it by using his piercing blood and Mahoraga was just peak Jujutsu sorcery in my opinion. Although Gojo managed to use Mahoraga's adaptation to his advantage, since Mahoraga wouldn't be affected by blue, enabling Gojo to get ahead of him and have all of them in range for an indiscriminate purple attack was just insane. And don't get me started on the use of incantations to power blue to devour Sukuna's piercing blood. I was actually gobsmacked. However, I think the use of the high level plays, especially at the 11th hour, just shows how much of a struggle both sides have had here. Like literally Gojo blew himself up. And after the constant black flashes and the damage inflicted against Sukuna, this seems to be the end of the battle. Or is it? Now let me make this clear, I'm pretty neutral in terms of both Gojo and Sukuna. I like them both, however I've always thought that Sukuna will win. And just because Kusakabe and Yuji said Gojo won, it doesn't mean he's won. I don't know how people are still running with that without confirmation. I mean, Sukuna is still standing. Typically in Jujutsu Kaisen, the victor is the one who is still alive. And personally, I don't think this situation will be an exception. Although it's very important to highlight the fact that right now there is a large gap between Gojo and Sukuna's capabilities that can't be denied. Gojo's reverse curse technique output is back, he's healing, whereas Sukuna is heavily injured, he's lost Mahoraga, RP Mahoraga, that was my guy, and he can't fight with domain expansion, so all the odds are pointing towards Sukuna losing. However, there's two major reasons as to why I don't think this is over, and I think you'll find the latter reason very interesting, although it's pretty much speculation and a theory stemming from new information we got this chapter. For the former though, this situation is very consistent with how Gojo has lost all the times in the past, when his guard's down and he seemingly has the advantage or is clearly the stronger between the two. Against Toji, he lost by being caught off guard by the inverted spear of heaven, which you can't really blame him for, but his initial approach to the fight as a whole started from him being cocky enough to take Toji in a 1v1 when this person had already managed to catch him off guard when he stabbed him for the first time within Jujutsu High's barrier. But then again, this is just an example, I'm not here to get into all the nitty gritty of it. Gojo took an L here, which is why I'm mentioning it. The second is with the disaster curses in Shibuya. Gojo did manage to overwhelm them all and he did go in solo, not a problem. But I'm sure it never crossed his mind that despite the massive gap between him and all these curses, that they would be smart enough to have a plan that would be able to render him immobile. Because no matter how you look at it, going after Gojo is the dumbest thing you can do without a plan. And unfortunately, Gojo got sealed. Again, you can't blame him. Who expected his dead best friend to appear at that moment? However, it's just consistent with the theme of Gojo getting caught off guard at the most vital moment when you don't expect him to lose. And now look at Sukuna, the king of curses, all battered and bruised, and Gojo being the clear better fighter. Well, here's what I think is going to happen, and as I said earlier, I've got reasons as to why I think this. Sukuna is going to launch a can't miss attack, potentially killing Gojo, that doesn't require domain. Now wait, I know it sounds crazy, it even sounds like an arsepool, but hear me out. Sukuna has been said to be a master of Jujutsu. You can even say he's the only one who knows true Jujutsu within the series. His performance in the battle has also shown how versatile and deep his understanding of Jujutsu is. But within this chapter, something was said that was never said in the entire series that led me to this conclusion. And it's the 6th page of 235. Right here, Sukuna says the occurrence of cursed energy is when it wells forth from a sorcerer immediately before they activate a cursed technique. It directly precedes activation of a major technique, like domain expansion or a can't miss attack. Sukuna clearly separated the terms domain expansion and can't miss attack. We know domains when imbued with cursed techniques have a can't miss attack factor that nobody can prevent, and this rule even applies to Gojo's Infinity. So what if can't miss attacks are a standalone form of Jujutsu itself? I wouldn't be surprised. I think the closest thing we have to this right now within the series is Kashima's lightning discharge, which makes use of his electrical trait within his cursed energy and the positive and negative charges of electricity, allowing him to guarantee a hit. And if can't miss attacks are a lost form of Jujutsu outside of the domain expansion, it would make sense that Gojo wouldn't know it exists since he's not from the Heian or older periods. Furthermore, this would also tie in well as to why Hakari said Sukuna has a killer move and if they go out he might unleash it. And of all people, the gambling man would definitely have good intuition. But why didn't Sukuna use this earlier? Well, here's what I think. It could be exactly like Hakari said and Sukuna foresaw the possibility of him getting jumped even though it hasn't happened, and he's saving the technique so he could potentially wipe out all those sorcerers in one go. Another thing I think is Sukuna was waiting for this exact scenario, It's kinda like showing your hand but hiding the most important card. As viewers, the majority think due to Sukuna relying on 10 shadows, he has no other way to combat Gojo, which could definitely be the case. This is just speculation after all. But knowing Sukuna's caliber and his knowledge of Jujutsu, I personally think he would at least have a means outside of 10 shadows and domain amplification to damage Gojo. Say what you will, say I'm hyping him up, but he's the king of curses for a reason. And with the fight being broadcasted, Sukuna has valid reason to not show everything off, especially when insanely powerful fighters would swoop in to kill him when he's weak if he successfully kills Gojo. Now that everyone thinks Sukuna's back's against the wall and Mahoraga is done, it's the perfect time for him to catch Gojo lacking and kill him for good. Another reason as to why I think Sukuna didn't use his can't miss technique is because it might be similar to Kashimo's in the sense he would have to recharge it before using it again. Worst case scenario, he used it early on in the fight and Gojo took major damage but didn't die. He would have revealed this major move of his for no reason and he would have a major cooldown. And given the nature of such an attack, referring back to page 6 of the latest chapter and the comment about the wedding of cursed energy before a big technique, just like domain expansion, a standalone can't miss attack would cost Sukuna a lot of cursed energy to use. So he wouldn't just throw it out unless he's in a serious pinch like he is now. And I definitely think Sukuna is a man who will go for certainty, especially when the biggest threat in this series is standing right in front of him. Actually, given his whole attitude and direction in this fight using the 10 shadows, jumping Gojo and even analyzing the battle while hiding in the shadows for a brief moment in time, I can 100% say that this is within Sukuna's nature to guarantee the win. And last but not least, for the end of this video, what can Sukuna's can't miss attack actually be? Of course, given the premise of my theory, I don't think it's a domain expansion. If anything, if Sukuna were to somehow use Megumi's domain expansion or something next chapter, I'd be highly disappointed because of the whole brain damage situation that was pointed out early on in the fight. Before his can't miss attack, we have to factor in his black box technique and all the abilities he's used so far curse technique wise. I don't think it would be an enhanced guaranteed version of cleave or dismantle because Gojo's already been hit with them multiple times throughout the fight and was constantly hit with it through Malevolent Shrine, so having those abilities be the deciding factor I just think would be boring. We then have the fireball and arrows Sukuna used against Jogo. This would be cool to see his return, but the technique was first used in a manner of disgracing Jogo, since Sukuna said he would fight using his speciality against the disaster curse whose affinity is fire and his overall theme. From the words of Sukuna, this obviously opens up the avenue for him having a multitude of other curse techniques that he can use whenever he wants to. So I don't think we will see the fire arrow for this can't miss attack. It's possible he could use a move similar to Gojo's skill set, maybe resembling red, blue or purple, spatial manipulation techniques, who knows. Honestly, Sukuna could pull out anything for this attack. But I personally think it would be an explosion of some kind. Again, if we use Hakari's words as a form of foreshadowing, in the event Sukuna held back a trump card to use against Gojo and everyone else, it would obviously be a guaranteed hit since it's a can't miss attack, but it would need to hit multiple people at once and be able to kill them all instantly. So I'm personally banking on an explosion. Maybe after Sukuna uses open, he then says the words close and an explosion of all the cursed techniques Sukuna has at his disposal takes place, or just a pure cursed energy nuke similar to what Gojo just did with purple. An indiscriminate attack that can't be blocked, not even by Infinity. But what do you guys think it could be, and let me know what you think of this theory. I was able to think up well on the can't miss attack aspect, but the actual attack itself is hard since Sukuna's moveset is so ambiguous and we still basically know nothing about his curse technique. But it'll be interesting to see what you guys come up with in the comment section below. Be sure to subscribe to the channel for more Jujutsu Kaisen content and leave a like if you want to see more manga videos on a regular basis. I know I've been covering the anime mainly, but I want to show my fellow manga readers some love too. And I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.